Anyway, kids,
hello and welcome to the second part of the Android app, the shopping app application tutorials. In the last tutorials, we created our database and implemented our PHP to create an API for login and also registering the user. So in this second part of the tutorial, we will be implementing the application in Android Studio to allow users to log in and also register for an account. So let's get started. First, we need to create a new Android Studio project. So I'm gonna be using an empty activity, and this tutorial we will be using Java, and also I'll be using the Android X libraries instead of the support library. But if you want, you can use the support library. It doesn't matter either way. So just name your project, and you can select the minimum API you want, then click on finish if you're happy with the settings. So let's wait for the project to build, then add the dependencies that we're going to be using. So with this project, I'll be using the MVP design pattern. If you don't know what the MVP design pattern is, you can do a bit of research. Basically, the MVP design pattern allows you to separate your code base to make it easy for, if you're writing unit tests for your application, it makes it easy to test your application and also make it easy to read your code. So with the MVP, you get separation of you're able to separate the logic from the view, your UIs. So let's add the dependencies that we'll be using. And since this application involves making API calls, we'll be using Retrofit and Okhttp and RxJava. If you want to learn more about those three libraries, there are a lot of tutorials that can help you with that. So first, let's add the Retrofit and Okhttp libraries. So you can go ahead and pause the video, then add these libraries into your Gradle dependencies. And these are also the RxJava libraries that we'll be using. Oh yeah, I think this is already in here, so you can just ignore this part. It's already here. And we will be using grid for displaying our images. If later on when we start implementing the product pages and the cards, we will need to display an image of the product, so we will be using this. And also change this KAPT to annotation processor, because KAPT is a code-trained annotation processor. So since you're using Java, we just change it from cat to annotation processor. So you can sing a credo when you're done. Oh, I think I spelled that wrong. Yeah, let's try again. Okay, yeah. So now everything is alright. So as I mentioned, we'll be following the MVP design pattern, so we first need to create our packages. So the first package will be package. This will be adapter for holding recyclable view adapters for later on if you're displaying items. And also another package, we call it base, that will be used later on as well. Then common, so the common is where we have our util classes. And model, and this package will hold all the models that we'll be using to communicate with our application. And we have our remote, so this package is for holding our network services, so you can either call it remote or network, it doesn't matter, you can call it however you prefer. Then the last one is the UI, which will hold all the UI for our application. So under UI, since we are creating our login and registration, we need to add two more packages. So this will be our login screen, so the login screen, they will have the main activity there, and another package under the UI, that will be the register screen. So let's rename the main activity to login activity. Then go to your layout resources as well and rename it to login activity login. If you're wondering how I get the rename pop-up, just select the file, then do shift F6 and it will bring up the rename pop-up menu. Okay, so now we have our project structure set up. So go to the common and add the file Java class, call it constant. Then in the constants you have all the constant variables that we'll be using. So the first one will be the URL to connect to our database. So that will be public static final, then call it base URL. Oh wait, it's a string base URL. HTTP :/10.0.2.2 ports 80. Or if you're wondering what this is, that's the local host for using an Android emulator. So if you're using Android emulator, you just need to type this for your local hosts. So we are running our application, our database on exam server, which is locally hosted on our machine. So we use this, and also we need to get this part here. Yeah. And that will be for our base URL to connect to our database. So this IP will only work if you're running an Android emulator. But if you want to use like your device or your physical device, just go to your command prompt, then type ipconfig. So here, that's the IP for my PC. So you just put this IP address instead of the local host, instead of this. Then the port is this column 80 here is the port number for your server. So for my exam server, I'm using the default port 80. So if you have a different port, just use that. Let's make our class a static. That won't work. Let's leave it then. Okay, so now we have our base URL. Go to our remote. So the remote will create an interface for connecting to our server. So call it network service or remote service, whatever you want. And that'll be an interface. Okay. So here we will define the methods that will allow us to register and also log in. So since we are using Retrofit, we just need to use the post annotation, the at post, and also since we are using PHP, we need to use this at form URL encoded to let it know we are using forms to fill out. We are filling out an HTML form. Then the at post, then we specify our relative URL, which will be v1. If you remember, we have a v1 folder in our API. Then inside the v1 folder we have a register.php file, so we just give it that register.php. Then you create a method. So public, the return type will be an observable. Oh, we don't have the return the data that we need to return at the moment. We will create that in the remote package, so we can ignore this, then give it a name. So register. And to register we need to fill out a form, and the database require the first name, last name, phone number, email, username and password. So we need to specify those as a parameter. So we use the at field to let Retrofit know which field we want to insert that data, then pass in the first name as a string. So this first name has to be the same as here. So if you name it differently, it will not work. They have to match up the field names in your database, just like here. So they need to match up the same as that. So at field first name, then that will be a string first name. Then the last name, that's also a string. Then we have a phone number, also a string. Then email, username, then the password. So with this we can just use this to log in. That's for registering our user. So we need to create the model to hold the data, to transfer the user data between our application and our database. So for that we go to our model class, our model package, then we just create a class, call it customer, then okay. So here, if you remember, when you send after you log in, you get this response back. So we need to turn this into a Java object, and you can either manually type all of these if you know how to translate from JSON to Java. You can manually type that. So that would be like private string. So we need the first name, last name, phone number, username, email ID, then the error and the message as well. So for that, so the ID is an int, so it will be int ID, and so on. So after you finish, just generate the getters and setters. And sometimes you get a JSON file which is a lot larger and complex than this simple one. So for that you need to either an easier way to convert this into Java objects. So the easier way will be using this website called JSON Schema to Pojo, and there are also a plugin in Android Studio that allows you to do similar things. So you just copy this, all your JSON data, paste it, then select target as Java, then JSON, then you want the annotation style will be JSON. And here you can either include getters and setters, and I don't like this, so you just remove that. And you just take the ones that you want, then click on preview. It generates everything for you. Then all you need to do is just copy this and paste it into your Java class. And since I also already have a plugin in Android Studio that allows you to do that, so just search for that. So GTO from JSON to Java, so it's called GTO Generator. You can just install it from your plugins. Then you just paste the JSON file, validate, so it's a correct file. Then the annotation format, just like on the website, you choose JSON and single file. No, I want a separate object. So if you have like a JSON with different objects, you can either make it include every single object in the same class, so that will create different classes in the same file, or you can just separate your classes using this. So I like to separate my classes, so I choose the separate, but with this it's only one class, so it doesn't matter either way. And we want to make our fields private and use getters and setters. And I like my names to be camel cases, so just go with that. Then you can click on generate. and as you can see, it generated everything for you, just like the website did.
The time is 4:00 p.m.
Or you can clean up this later, then remove all the files you don't need. So I don't want these are private fields, so I don't want them to be exposed, so I just remove that. I'm using getters and setters instead, and change these to match up with my variables. Okay, so it seems everything is alright. Yeah, so now here we go back to our network service, just passing our customer object that we just created. What the heck is going on? Oh, it's using the Java observable instead of the retrofit instead of RxJava observable. So you just need to import the RxJava instead of, so use the IO reactive instead of the Java one. Yeah, and that will fix it. And also we need our login as well, so the same form URL code, then the post. So this is gonna be the same like that one, but instead of register we put login. So v1 slash login.php, then create a public observable, then we pass our customer again. Then login. So for the login, it will require the username and password, so we just pass that. So you can just copy and paste these two and paste them. That's it. And that will complete our network service. So now we need to create another class that will use this network service. So we need to create a retrofit our client to use the network service. So we create another Java, but instead of class I'm gonna be using enum. The reason why I'm using enum is because I want to make this class a singleton. So an enum is the best way of making a singleton class, because enums are synchronized and so it runs faster on multi-threading. Or you can just create a normal Java singleton pattern, but using enums is the simplest way. So just I'll name this network helper. Yeah, and I'm using an enums. So with enums it's already a singleton. You just need to add this instance here at the top, and it will make it a singleton. Then you need a private and empty constructor. So now we just create our retrofit client. That will be public. Then retrofit client. So you can ignore this part, but I'm just using it to log our API response in the log card. So like if you run your application, when there's a connection to the API, it will log all the responses into the log card. Then you know if there's an error, so it will just tell you, it will just show you the response. I've been writing in Kotlin for a while, so now sometimes I just forget the new keyword. So the interceptor dot level get level. No. So that would be dot level. Here we are setting the level to HTTP login interceptor dot level dot body. Okay, so now we need the HTTP client as well. So that will be HTTP client because new HTTP client of builder, yeah, add interceptor. Then we need create a JSON as well. That is optional, you don't need to add it. And then finally we return our retrofit client. Oh. So the client, we pass the Okhttp client, then the base URL. So if you remember, we have a constant with the base URL, so we just pass constants dot base URL, then add converter factory, so the core adapter factory will be RxJava 2 core adapter factory, because we'll be using RxJava. Dot create, then the JSON converter factory will be the JSON we just created. So JSON converter factory dot create, then we pass the JSON in the create here, then we build it. Oh shit, I forgot the curly braces here. I forgot the brackets. Yes. Yeah, so now our network helper is also done. So let's just clean it up a bit. Okay. Now we can go ahead and implement our login screen. So for the login, we need to add the UI. Or you can add this to your Gradle. So the text input layout, that's a material design edit text, but for creating input fields, or you can just use the normal edit text. But the reason I'm using this is you get this hint when you are typing. This hint pops up at the top, then it doesn't disappear like the normal edit text. So we just change this hint to username. Then add another one. Then this would be the password field. So now we need to give them ID. So the ID, you have to give it to the edit text inside the text input layout. So that's the one we need. So just go there. So AT username, then this to AT password. Then we need a button for logging in. BTN login. Oh, come on. Or you can later on improve your UI, but this I'm not gonna be making the UI perfect. So just change the button name to login, the text on the button. And now we go to the login activity. So since we are following the MVP design pattern, we'll be using interfaces and to communicate between the presenter and the UI. So we need the UI. So here we create another class called presenter. So the presenter is going to be handling all the logic to that pass the user the information that the user input to our network client, and also get the results and displaying it on the UI. So the UI, which is the activity class, doesn't do anything. It doesn't do any calculations or anything. It only handles the displaying information to the view. That's it. The presenter will handle everything. So this will be login presenter. And another interface, login contract. That will be an interface. So the login contract, we need another interface.
You have new mail. You have 5 new messages.
That will be view. And another one. Presenter. So this view interface is what will be updating our UI, and this presenter interface will handle the methods to initiating the logic for our presenter. So for the view, we can show an error message on our UI or a success message. So for that we need a method for doing that. So public void show message, and that will be a string message. That's it. Then another show error string error. And also when we successfully log in, we need to get the customer, we need to get the user that has logged in. So we need to get the user details to be able to later on use those details to specify which user is making the purchase. So to do that, we need another method on login success. Then that we need the customer model we created area. Then the last one, so if you want to show loading indicator, so like show a progress, if like a loading progress, you can just add that as well. So with that, you'll be using a boolean to check if it's loading or not. And go to our presenter interface. You will need only one method for that to log in, initiate the login. So we just call it init login. So that we need the username and password. Then the password, that's it. So now we go to our presenter, our login presenter. So the login presenter will implement the interface. So just do implement login controls dot presenter. So we just overwrite that. Or if you're wondering how I get that, just do Control I and it will bring up the pop-up showing all the methods that can be override, that can be implemented. So we also need a constructor. So the constructor will take in the view, which is the
You have new mail. You have
the
6
contract, the
new
view
messages.
the interface view we created in the login contract. So that would be login contract dot view. That will be our view. Yeah, that would be it, I guess. So we also need to create the private field for the view here. And also create our network service. So our network service will be equals the network helper dot instance dot retrofit client dot create, then we pass in the network service dot class, and that will create our network service. So now, and one more, you will need a composite disposable variable. So now in our init login method, we need to call our network service to get the methods that we created here. This method to accept user input and insert the user information. When the user fill out the form, we pass the information to our presenter, then to the network service. So to do that, we just need to call that method in the network service interface. So we use the network service class dot login, then we pass in this username here and the password. So username, password, and since we're using RxJava, we just use subscribe on, then schedulers.io. And we observe on the main thread, then we subscribe. So here in the unsubscribe, if you remember, in the view we had a method for checking if we are still loading, so we can do that here. So when we subscribed, then it goes into the loading, but when we goes to the on next, that is when the loading stops and we get the information back. So these three methods are the main methods that we will be using. You can just ignore this or complete. Then just pass through. then also view dot show message, get message, then view dot on login success, then just passing the customer. And if there's an error, we just need to print it. We just need to show an error message. So that you can just do view.show error. Then you can put any error message you want, but for simplicity, I'm just gonna use the throwable, the message that you get from the throwable. You don't get message. And that's it for our presenter. So now we can move on to, oh wait, we had the composite disposal, but we are not using that. So the reason for the composite disposable is to clear our the RxJava observable from fetching new data even when the view is not being used. So we just need to add, then paste this inside it. What the heck is going on? If that's not gonna work, let's just leave it at that. It doesn't matter either way, so but later we can still use it, but I'm not sure why I'm getting that error. It will still work either way, so to not waste too much time, let's just keep it simple. Yeah, so that will be it for our presenter. Then when we go to our login activity, so the login activity will also have to implement our interface, the login contract. So here, instead of login contract.presenter, we implement login contract.view, then overwrite the methods. So here for the show message, we're just gonna be using a toast. And pass the message. Then same for the show error. But here, instead of message, you just use error. And if you have a progress bar, a progress bar for showing our progress, then here you use like an if statement to check if it's loading. Then you show your progress. If it's not loading, then you disable the progress. So that's just for an example, but here in this part, I don't think we'll be using this. The one that we need to focus on is this on login success. That this is where we will get the customer details. But before we can do that, we just need to create our presenter variable. So that would be private presenter, login presenter. Then here we initiate. Presenter equals new login presenter. Then we pass this. So this here is the view that we are implementing. If you remember, the presenter requires the view as in the constructor. So now we need to initiate a login when we click on the login button. So that will be btn. We need to create the button first. So btn login equals find view by id outer id dot btn login. Btn login dot set on quick listener. So when we click on that, we need to now we need to get the edit text for the username and the password. So username, we need to create a string equals at username dot get text dot toString, then at password equals at password dot get text dot toString. So now we get the values that the user input, and we just pass those values to our presenter dot initiate login, then we pass username password, and that gets these values and pass it to our network client, and the network client will just send that data to our server and get the details when we log in. So now that is done. So this on login success, that will be used later on, not in this, that might not be covered in this tutorial. So let's try it out. Oh wait, before we do, we need to add the internet permission. So if you check here, you have a test user and a password. Okay, so we are getting an error, and the error is saying the create test communication not permitted by network security policy. So this happens for with the OKHTTP if you're using HTTP instead of HTTPS. So to fix that, we just need to add few lines into our manifest. So just add this inside the application tag here. Let's paste this here. Use his create test traffic, set it to true, and that should fix the issue. So now if we try again, so as you can see, we get error false and message login successful. Then we get the user ID. So the ID is number 1, the username, first name is test user, then the phone number, email, then the username. So this is what the log interceptor that we added here does. So this interceptor here, that's basically what it does. That's what it's doing here. So it shows us our results. That shows that the login was successful. So if we successfully log in, we want to go to our main activity. So for that, we create a new activity. New activity. For this, we will be using the navigation drawer activity. Then just name it main activity, and also make it a launcher activity, because later on we will be caching the user login. Well, let's just ignore the launcher for now. And everything looks okay. Let's finish. So if we go back to our login activity, here on login success, we can use that. So if customer.get message equals, so if you remember, the message here is login success. So we pass it, or we can just do dot contains this. So if it contains login successful, then we start the new activity, our main activity. And that will start the main activity. Let's try. Oh, what's the main activity? Let's import. Okay. it's not supposed to be an abstract class. Yeah, now it's working. So as soon as you log in, you just get to the main activity with our with the default Android Studio navigation menu. So if your model class is marked as an abstract, make sure it's not an abstract class. And basically that concludes the login part. So now we can do the registration as well. So for that, we go to our login, our activity login XML. Then you're gonna add a text view here. Set the text size to 24. Then the text will be click here to register. Make it an italic center. Then the text color, just make it this color here. So if you want to register, just click on this. So go to the register clean package and we create another activity for our registration for registering. So activity, empty activity. For that, make sure you select empty. Then register activity. Then finish. So we go back to our login activity here. Then we add let's give it an ID. It's already in the TV register. So text view TV register, because find view by ID other ID dot TV register. So we add a click listener to the text view. TV register dot set on click listener, new on click listener. So if you click on the text view, just go to the register activity. Register activity dot class. This dot login activity dot this. So when you click on that, it will just take you to the register activity. So when I click on that, it just open up the register activity.
The time is 5:00
Yeah,
p.m.
I'm just adding this to set this title here from shopping app to login. See, now we change to login. So now let's implement the register activity. So for that, we also need a contract. So register contract and interface. Okay. So just like before, so we can just copy and paste them. So we don't need this loading here, so we can remove it, and we just call this register. So for registering, we need the first name, so we need to get all of these details and change this to register success. And the rest you can keep the same. Yeah, that will be for the register contract. Then we need a register presenter. And click OK. So that will implement the register contract dot presenter. Then we implement the methods. So So first we need the view. Oh shit. I forgot to give the variable a name because so here will be network service dot register. Then we pass the first name, last name, phone number, email, username, then the password. Then we subscribe on schedulers.io, then observe on Android schedulers.mainthread. Then we subscribe. So just like before, we just do view dot on register, then you pass the customer, and view dot show message customer dot get message. And that's it. Since we are not using the loading indicator, we don't need to include anything. Then for the error, just to view dot show error, get message, and we add our constructor. Yeah, and that will be for our register presenter. So now we need to, so let's go to our XML for our registration layout. So activity register XML. So first we need the So give it 80 first name.
You have new mail. You have 7 new messages.
Last name. Then this would be the phone number. And this should be our email. Text email address. Then now we need our username and password. Username. Then finally our password field. And the button for registering. BTN register and changes to register. Okay, so now let's go to our, we've already implemented the login, the register presenter. So now we just need to implement the register activity. So this will also implement the contract, the register contract, the view, and override the methods. So those don't make this message land show dot show. So first we need to get our edit text. Then the button. And our presenter. Okay, so now let's initialize the presenter. Set the title to register, then presenter equals new register presenter. Then we pass this, and we get the button btn register because find by id outdoor id dot btn register et first email equals find outdoor id dot et email et first name et last name et phone number et username then finally the password. That is a pain. This is why I prefer Kotlin. You don't have to do find view by ID so many times. So now we set the correct listener for our register button. So btn register.set on click listener new on click. So now we get the user inputs. So string first name equals et first name what the dot get text dot to string then last name dot get text dot to string then Okay, so now we get all the user input as a string, then we just pass those to our presenter. So we just do presenter dot register, and we pass first name, last name, phone number, email, username, and password, and that will just pass this data to our network clients, and that will pass it to our server and insert those into our database. So in some application, after you register, and if the registration is successful, they just get your details, and it just goes straight to your main activity or your home screen, whatever it is. And some also just go back to your login, then you use the details to log in. But for this, we're just gonna go back to the login screen after the registration is successful. So we just use if customer.get message dot contains registration success. If it contains registration success, then we go to our login activity, then you log in. So let's run it. As you can see, using the MVP pattern, your main activity looks much cleaner. There's not too much code. All the code is done in your presenter. So now if you go to our register, just put any name, then we register. So let's see. Oh, I don't think that worked. Let's check our database. Yeah, it didn't work. So there was an issue with this. Yeah. Let's go to registration XML. Okay, we have our ET username. Oh, it's use. I forgot the R. And that is what caused it. So here this will be ET user name. Yeah, that one. Yeah, and that should fix it. So let's try again. Okay. I don't get what's going on. Yeah, it said registration success. So what is the problem? Yeah, as you can see, it just insert the data, but for some reason I'm getting a crash. Oh, it's not crashing, but it's just well, it works. So as soon as you register, it comes back to the login screen, and you can use the details to log in. Yeah, and but I'm not sure what these errors are for. The application is not crashing though, it's still working, but it just said can't toast on the thread that has not called looper.prepare. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. But for the tutorial, everything is working as it's supposed to. So now you can log in. You can now log in and also register. And there's one thing we need to add to our manifest, because as you can see, after you log in, if you click the back button, let's log in, when you get to your home screen, if you click the back button, it goes back to the login. You don't want that. So what you want is, after you log in, if you click that, it closes the application, goes to the your device home screen, instead of going back to the login. So to fix that, we need to change the launch mode for our main activity. So for our main activity, this one here, just you just set the launch mode to single top. So with that, after you log in, if you click on the back button, it doesn't go back to the login screen, it will just close the application. So let's see, gsmith password login, and when I click, oh wait, it's took, and I think I need to do the same thing for the login screen as well. Make the login screen also a single top. I don't get it. Well, we'll fix that later, but for now, we just ignore that. I think, yeah, after you log in, we just need to finish the login. So yeah, on login success, just finish the login activity, then you call the finish. So as soon as it goes to the next activity, just finish it, and that will close the login activity. Yeah, that works. So now if you go back, it doesn't go back to the login screen, and as you can see, when I open the app, it just asks for login again. So in the next tutorial, we will implement a way to catch the login details. So when you open the application, the login screen will not be presented. It will just use the previous details you entered to log in automatically, and also add a button in our navigation to allow you to log out. If you want to change the user, you just log out and we'll come back to the login screen, and you use a different account to log in if you have a different account. So that concludes this part of the tutorial. Thank you for watching. See you next time.